This episode of the Police One podcast is sponsored by Officer Store. Learn more about getting the gear you need at prices you can afford by visiting officerstore.com. Hey, welcome back to Policing Matters on policeone.com. I'm your host, Jim Dudley, and I hope you are checking us out on our YouTube channel as well. That way you can get a look at our guests, and unfortunately, I'll be on there as well. Well, statistics from the 2021 Bureau of Labor indicate that there were nearly 1,300 campus law enforcement agencies nationwide that employed about 17,600 full-time officers and another 25,000 civilians. And that's not even counting the two-year institutions as well. These are four-year colleges and universities. Well, today, our guests include Chief Brent Plisch from the University of Wisconsin-Madison Police Department and Major Stephen Luce, Director of Professional Standards and Education at the Indiana University Police Department, and Officer Abby Gambrell from Indiana University as well. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Happy to be here, Jim.
Yep. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, great to see you all. So I know it's turning cold where you all are at. I know Major Luce talked about it being 10 degrees this morning. I'm sure Madison's probably at least in that vicinity.
Yeah, we're at 10 degrees with a wind chill of -5 right now, so it's pretty chilly.
Nice. Yep. Nice to be out here in California for a change. Well, Chief Plisch, tell us about your agency in Wisconsin, your college town, I'd imagine. You got a big number of students and faculty there.
Yeah, so UW-Madison is a phenomenal place to work. It's a really vibrant city. It's the state capital of Wisconsin. We're just 6 blocks away from the capital, right up State Street from campus. So there's a lot going on here. Being a Division I school with a phenomenal sports program, we've got a lot of extra activities that our staff are involved in, but it's also just a great place to live and enjoy those activities. As far as the police department, we're on the largest campus within the state. We've got about 52,000 students. We're roughly 20 to 25,000 staff. We've got the only level 1 trauma center in town. So we see a lot of incidents coming in from both South Central Wisconsin and out of state, from Illinois, from Iowa, from parts of Minnesota, that we sometimes engage with if there's criminal actions that happen and those local law enforcement agencies can't get here before the helicopter gets here. So we stay really busy with that group. And in fact, if you looked at our campus, we'd be about the 6th or 7th largest jurisdiction in the state in terms of population. So we've got a police department to support that. We're full-time 24/7 law enforcement. We're one of the few agencies in this county that has our own dispatch center. We do all of our own alarm monitoring and camera monitoring. We've got a whole team of security folks as well that do physical security and access control type work. We've got a bunch of specialty units in terms of policing stuff, like a horse unit, mounted unit, motorcycles, canine unit, all the typical things that you think of within a police department. One of the really interesting pieces I think about campus law enforcement is that we're integrated so much with our community in different ways. It helps support, like our security staffing. It also, provides for emergency management within our organization. We run emergency management for the entire Universities of Wisconsin system, which is 13 different campuses, 13 four-year institutions. We've got our own budget and finance team. We've got our own HR team, our own IT unit. So really a ton of opportunities from civilian roles through our sworn police officers that you traditionally think of as part of a police department.
Yeah, a city within a city.
It is, and in fact, I think the only employment that we don't have within UW-Madison is firefighters, right? We've got traffic engineers, we've got grounds crews, anything that a city has, we have the same comparable thing. and we deal with the same problems that the city has to deal with. We're frequently meeting with them through a variety of different groups to address threats to campus, to address mental health problems, because the problems in the city don't just stay in the city; they cross our borders into campus. And the problems that we're dealing with on campus, whether it's unhoused folks, students with mental health concerns, they don't just stay on campus; they're also traversing the city because our jurisdictions overlap, an incredible amount. And as such, we're actually deputized within our county as well, because we've got properties all over the county. And in fact, UW-Madison specifically also provides policing services to the UW extension. So up in Marshfield, Wisconsin, 2.5 hours away, there's an extension farm. If there would be an arson there, we would be called, not as first responders to help put out a fire, obviously, but to investigate that. So we've got a wide breadth of properties and people that we engage with on a regular basis, and operate as a normal police department would in any other jurisdiction.
Sure. And Major Luce, Indiana University, I'd imagine you're somewhat similar.
Yeah, almost identical to what the chief had mentioned. I mean, we're structured very similar, like Wisconsin. We have a presence in, I think it's like 88 of the 92 counties in Indiana. A lot of the similar duties the chief had mentioned. The challenge for us is just how large we are as a policing system, university policing system. For example, our campus in Gary up by Chicago, and then we've got one down by Louisville on the Indiana side. So, I mean, that right there is a 7-hour travel from north to south. So, but, coming together as one combined university system it helps us maximize our resources for sure. The same challenges that Wisconsin faces, we face here in Indiana. And I know that because I know that the leadership within the Big Ten often communicates with each other. And, what are you seeing? How can we help through partnership? So a lot of the same things that they're going to have at Wisconsin, we're going to have here. One thing that really sets us apart at Indiana University, and we're structured, full-time presence all over the state, from security to part-time to full-time. We run our own dispatch as well. But what sets us apart is our cadet officer program, which Abby is a recent graduate of. We have our own police academy under the academic umbrella of the university, where we take students. They are part of this program. They get their academy certification, and then their last year or two, they work with us as a part-time officer in a student capacity. So that's something we've been doing since 1972. And there's other models that are very similar to it, but we're unique in the fact that we really were pioneers when it comes to that type of higher ed model, hybrid police training back in the 1970s. So that's something we're really proud of. I'm a graduate. A large majority of our officers are graduates. And we just hit a big milestone graduating our 50th class 2 years ago. Abby was in the 51st, and this year we'll be having our 52nd class. So we've got a pretty good history, but it is challenging as we've seen it evolve here over the past couple of years.
Yeah, that's awesome. I myself came up through an Explorer program. I got in on the tail end. I was a reserve at our local sheriff's department, and it was a great immersion into the culture. Now, Abby, you've recently gone through all of that. What got you interested? What was the experience like?
Yeah, so I came to Indiana University with no plans of going into policing or law enforcement at all. I'm a double major in criminal justice and psychology, so I kind of thought I would go into some form of a legal career, but I wasn't really sure. And then my freshman year, I was taking an introductory criminal justice course, and two of the sergeants came in promoting this program. And I kind of just thought it sounded interesting. I wasn't too sure if I wanted to do it, and I kind of just did more research on my own. I was lucky enough the next semester to have a TA who had gone through the same program, and she just had nothing but positive things to say about it and talked about how much not only it changed her life educationally and professionally, but as a person. And I kind of was just fell in love with the idea of that and decided that this could be an experience that I felt that I needed in my life. So I applied my sophomore year, got accepted, worked as a cadet my junior year, and you don't have as many responsibilities then, but the big time kind of comes in the summer when you go through the police academy through IU. And that experience completely changed my life for the better. And I just fell in love with policing. I still went into the academy thinking that this wasn't really something I was going to do. I was kind of going to use it as a stepping stool. But all the instructors, again, most of which went through IUPA and then continued to work for IUPD, and again, just had nothing but positive experiences and things to say about it. So I kind of kept talking to those officers, and they convinced me to apply to IUPD full time. And so now those are my plans. I'm going to graduate this December and then start full time in January with IUPD.
Wow, that's awesome. And so what was the onboarding process like? Was it all here's the program, you did your own investigation and then you applied? Did you have any kind of a mentorship? Did you have people along the way saying, hey, here's how you can practice for your physical agility or your oral boards, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I really like about IUPD is that there's definitely a family atmosphere. And so when I applied, we met with our cadet coordinator, who's a sergeant that is in charge of all the cadets and kind of works with them through the cadet year, and then also is in charge of them as part-time officers with scheduling and anything else that you would need. And that's Sergeant David Wilson. So definitely everyone leans on him a lot as a mentor, and everyone else with IUPD that are instructors throughout the academy. Even as a cadet, I still went up to random officers when we worked football games or basketball games and kind of leaned on them. So really everyone has kind of been a mentor in that sense. But then another cool opportunity that we had after the academy is different internships within being a part-time officer. For example, the investigations unit does one. So I think there's about 5 part-time officers right now that get to see more of that side of things. I just did one with our public information officer, Hannah Skibba. So I got to see the social media side of things and what she does communications wise. So I've had her as a mentor. But really along the way, everyone is helping you. There's never really a position, even after you apply right as a cadet, there's never a moment where you feel alone. There's definitely officers that are guiding you throughout the entire process.
Yeah, that's great. So, well, you seem like a very articulate young woman and a bit of an extrovert. What about your classmates that might have been a little bit more introverted, maybe afraid of the process? Did you see any of them take a chance on the program, or what do you think we need to do as law enforcement representatives to get those people involved as well?
I think kind of just noticing those personalities at the beginning is a big difference. And I think that IUPD did a great job of that. There's definitely all kinds of personalities, especially in my academy class. We had a big mix, wide range of the scale of people who are very extroverted like myself and then very on the introverted end. But I think that IU as a whole does a really good job, and I'm sure it's the same at other universities, but our police department is very welcoming, very diverse. So I think that is kind of a big step in that direction in helping those personalities. And with recruiting too, I think that a bunch of departments in not only Indiana, but all over the US are working on becoming more diverse. And I think that's something that is attracting the younger crowd to law enforcement. Specifically, IU and some other departments in Indiana have a 30-30 initiative where they're trying to increase the amount of women that they have at their departments. So I just think that things like that are super important, because coming into a department where your department reflects the community that you're policing is a lot less intimidating than going to a department where you don't feel as welcome. And so I think that, yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things.
Jim, if I could add to that, and Abby's right, and this is something I told her class, and I tell every class that, for instance, Abby's class, if I'm not mistaken, Abby was 22 or 24 graduates. I tell them I don't want one singular robotic officer of the whole class walking out. I want 24 different individuals, and that's something I think we really stay true to that spirit, that we want you to bring your individual personality, just who you are. We don't want to brainwash anybody in their training. There's that basic training feel, but we're not the military either. We come at it with a really higher end approach, and we want to embrace people's differences, their diversity and everything. And that's something that I know that, especially with Abby's class, we had a spectrum of people that were more reserved to people that I had to pull back all the time just because they had such a motor, right? And I think there's a beauty in that we recognize our officers first are human beings, and we want them to embrace who they are first and foremost.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Chief Plisch, you have something similar?
We don't have a cadet program, and that is something that we'd like to explore. We do offer internships, and that's been a phenomenal entry tool for folks coming into the organization. And I think, and Abby, please correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard from your statement is something that we've experienced here, and that's people that are applying for jobs in the law enforcement career now don't necessarily have the why. They don't understand why they want to do the job. And I think it's really important for us to help develop people before they're even in the recruiting process to understand why they want to be in law enforcement. For a stretch of time, we've seen individuals come to us. They do great in the hiring process. They have a phenomenal background. They do great in the academy, and they get out on the road and they say, "I don't know why I'm here. I don't understand why I'm doing this job. It doesn't call to me. It doesn't speak to me." And I think that's what we need to shift. We need to find people that either have that desire to serve others, that desire to be part of something greater than themselves, or we need to help develop that. And I think helping develop skills in resiliency, to help develop skills with conflict resolution, and then develop this why, this sense of purpose about why people want to be in the law enforcement community and helping protect these really unique communities is vital. And we've looked at the Indiana program because I think the opportunity to bring young folks into a program early and really expose them to the great things that law enforcement does on campuses and in all communities really, but it generates that why and that sense of purpose for the organization. So it's something that we're exploring. We're working with academies across the state. We don't have our own academy. We have to use state academies, but trying to recruit folks into the profession with a sense of purpose is a vital step for us in recruiting.
Yeah, and I think it's important to, just as you said, Chief and Abby and Major Luce as well, you all said that it's that onboarding process, that introductory to policing. And we already have the legacies, right? We got them on the hook. We have sons and daughters and relatives or friends of police who know already what the culture might be like and they want to go into it. But then we have that whole other generation of young people who only know what they see on TV or in the news or they hear, from friends and others. And an internship is great. Cadet programs are great. But students, I know from being a law enforcement professional and now teaching my last 12 years at a university, that students are spread thin. They might have a part-time job or they're in a long commute. And so what's in it for them to go and join these kinds of programs? Hopefully they're paid, but I mean, unpaid, that's a real big ask for some of these young people to come in. So how do we introduce them to the culture? We have things like Citizens Academy. At my school, we actually offer 2 course units as an elective to go through the Citizens Academy and write papers on it. How are you luring those young people on the fence to come in and open your door and take a look at your agency?
I think within the structure at UW-Madison, we're out there engaging with students. We have liaison officers assigned to all of the residence halls. We have liaison officers assigned to our LGBTQ plus groups on campus and our ROTC units in different areas of campus. Athletics, certainly it has a bunch of students that are going to be looking for careers after school. So we have intentionally put officers in contact with folks who may not have the time. Certainly, like our athletics folks don't have the time to join many internship programs, but we're getting them exposure through positive contacts and learning the people within the department. And that has actually paid some dividends for us because it's gotten that exposure up front. And it's made people think, hey, maybe this could be a career for me. Even though I thought I wanted to go this direction, look at what they're doing in this community that I really care about. And we've got a number of graduates here from UW-Madison that have stayed here. They aren't from the area, but they love this community because it's a community that's given so much to them. And because of those touch points, even in an informal setting like an athletic liaison or an ROTC liaison setting, we're getting those folks to come back and take a look at us as a career field.
Yeah, so Major Luce, so midway through the process, say we have somebody in the police academy and all of a sudden they drop out. And when you have your exit interview, they say for personal reasons. Do you go into that at all? I know that, and Abby, you can jump in here too. I know sometimes there's peer pressure from friends or relatives saying, "What are you doing? Joining the police department? Are you out of your mind?" And so there's that pressure, or maybe there's that self-doubt. I know a lot of students are, thinking that they're gonna, fake it till they make it, and then the wheels start wobbling, and they're looking for a reason to get out. How do we retain those kind of folks?
Yeah, so that's a good point as far as the debriefing. We have people leave. We know that. That's the beauty in our program, that we want you to get in, get your feet wet as a cadet, and maybe you don't want to do it. That's fine. There's no, we'll be here to support you and your professional endeavors moving forward. But that's one thing that we really want to talk to our employees. Why are you leaving? Is it something we did, the training staff, the department? Thankfully, I can speak for my group, the training unit. I think of one young man that left Abby's class, and I asked him specifically, "Is it us?" And they said, "Absolutely not. It's a personal reason." So even beyond that, how can we still help you work through those personal issues? But I think retaining people long term, it really goes back to that culture that's set up front, and I think that's something that we've really had to switch here, at least since when I started back in 2005 to now, is when we get people on board and they start with us, is letting them know the identity of the department and who we are. We are not a municipality. We're not the state police. We're not a sheriff's department. We are a university higher education police department. And we want people to understand what that means and what that is. Because a lot of people come to us with these expectations of what they've seen on TV, and we have to say, time out. That's not what we do. Our customers are our students and staff. And this family aspect that Abby talked about, we want them to understand. At the same time, we want them to understand too that we're no different than a sheriff's department, a municipality, or the state police. It's the same authority in Indiana. The level of training is the same, if not better, through our program. So it's getting people to understand what, if you're going to make a career working here at IUPD or Wisconsin, this is what you're going to see throughout your career, and you're going to see things evolve. I think in my career, nearly 20 years, in the past 3, it seems like every year it's evolved double, right? So getting people to understand that shift's going to happen, but we want to anticipate that shift and also try to put people in the lane that they want to be. Where do you want to be 5, 10, 15 years from now?
Sure.
Getting people thinking about that now, because as we all know, and Abby, you'll know this too, before you know it, you'll blink and you'll be 15, 20 years in. So it's getting people to understand this is a noble profession. You can make a great career out of it. To the chief's point about student engagement, chief, we do all those same things, and it's very valuable. But I think also too is exposing your recruitment to students outside of that criminal justice bubble. And that's not a knock on criminal justice. It's great. It's a great degree program, but there's a lot of people that, as we all know, you don't have to have a criminal justice degree to be a police officer, right? We've had people that are arts, science, etc. And in some ways that really benefits them because it's a different mindset than that traditional criminal justice policing thought process. So just informal communication, talking to people, and just engaging them. I think pulling the curtain back a little bit so people understand what it is we do as university policing, because a lot of people don't really understand. Chief, I'm sure your staff get the same question. Are you guys really cops? Yeah, we're really cops, and we're really great cops, right? So it's getting the community to understand what it is we do in a higher ed environment.
I think, to the major's point too, it's creating this both and scenario. Yes, we are real cops, and we are different. We can be both things. It's not an either or. We do police in different ways. We are engaged more with our communities because we have different expectations from our communities in many ways. And I think setting those expectations for our officers up front, we just launched a new recruiting webpage, and it's not full of TAC teams and canines and jumping out of helicopters. All that stuff's really cool and sexy, But that's not what law enforcement does on a daily basis in this country, even outside of campus communities. So we don't want to sell ourselves as you're going to be jumping off of a roof and doing rappelling every day, or jumping out of a helicopter, because that's just not, it's not what we do. We engage with our community. So we want to sell that as a point for why people would want to come to this organization, and then build their resiliency for the tough days, because there are tough days. There are days where our officers are investigating sexual assaults or homicides, and those are tough days, and we need to make sure that they're prepared for those as well.
Yeah. Well, Officer Gambrell, Abby, jump in here. I'm sure you heard some mutterings from your classmates thinking, maybe I should bail on this. Did you hear any resilience or encouragement that kept them sticking to the program?
Absolutely. And I kind of want to go back a little bit too. You had mentioned in that question, what to do with the recruits who may be in that mental battle that people are convincing them not to do it, especially, not having that family support. And I experienced that firsthand in the academy. I didn't have any family in law enforcement. My parents are like, why do you want to do this? Like, what are you getting yourself into? And again, I didn't really know my why. I didn't know why I wanted to do this. I just knew that I wanted to help people and that this experience sounded like something that I wanted to do. And so I kind of found my why throughout the academy, but I think that a big part of getting through that mental battle is just leaning on the people around you. Specifically, Sergeant Haley Wilson, I had other females that had gone through the program that I talked to when I was struggling, whether it was physically or that mental battle. And then even just with my fellow recruits, I had lots of friends. Greek life is a big thing at Indiana University, and people were talking about, well, how are we going to be members of Greek life, but also be campus police? That was kind of a big struggle, and we had to have some awkward conversations there, but essentially just talking through things and realizing that, we're all doing this for a greater purpose and trying to figure out what that greater purpose was.
Nice. And so the support, so you had great staff support. What about peer to peer? Were you talking amongst yourselves? What was the biggest fear or the reason? I know what I'm getting at, I guess, is that I know we've had some recruits quit and give all their stuff up and walk away and say, well, I quit because I knew I was failing. And to the tax staff, it was a surprise because unbeknownst to the training recruit, they were doing fine. But I think somewhere in their mind, they figured they weren't. So how do we stop that from happening?
Well, I think just looking for the signs, somebody during the day might be acting like they're fine getting through the day of the academy, and then at night, going home, if they're not being as social or things like that, just kind of trying to look out for those things. And I think a big part of the success of my academy class was that a lot of us were very close and we were checking in on each other all the time. And going through the police academy is definitely something that's going to take a toll on you mentally and physically. And kind of, I think just being aware of that and being aware that it's going to affect everyone differently too. There's people that are coming in that are a lot mentally tougher than others. There's going to be weeks where some people struggle and then some people do really well. And then the next week, that same person who did well is going to struggle, and it's going to be flipping vice versa and all that. So trying to just hone in on that friendship, or even not even just, if you don't have to like everybody, if you're not going to be friends with everybody, thinking that, you're all there to do the same job, and realizing that as a recruit, one day that person could be saving your life, or you could be saving their life, and you want them to get through the academy. You want them to know how to do everything right, so that if they are your backup one day, you can trust them and you can rely on them, and vice versa again. So definitely looking out for those signs, making sure that people are doing okay. They might say that they are, but just trying to figure out mentally if everyone is getting through it, and trying to just, it comes down to being a good person and trying to figure out, if they're not okay, maybe just talk to them. All it could take is having a conversation and being open about things and saying, hey, maybe you're not okay, and that's fine. Let's talk about it. Let's see if I can help you, if somebody else can help you. So really, I just think it comes from a place of openness. That's how we can help those people.
Nice.
Jim, I'd like to throw in some info on that. That we're looking, we're in these amazing research institutions, right? That have all kinds of really smart people that deal with things like mental health concerns, or they deal with educational reforms and how we train people better. I think we as campus law enforcement have a duty to reach out to staff. Like we're going to work with the Center for Healthy Minds here on campus to figure out in our training program, how do we inject not just the police training, but mental health resiliency training into our training program. So, we get our recruits out of a statewide academy. They come to us, they go through a mini academy here with UW Police Department to learn specific stuff here. We're going to start looking at putting them right into some resiliency training so that before they're even out on the road, they've got some skills to deal with issues and cope with issues in healthy ways. And I think we can do that in a lot of different ways with our training. With right now we're engaged in a virtual reality training program with our School of Engineering to help develop a police training virtual reality system for de-escalation. So I think we've got some really cool opportunities here to both be part of leading edge research and leading edge deployment of tactics that will help us get more people in the door for policing.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I want to delve a little bit more into the training and VR, especially. We've been talking about that on some of the shows. I've just been to the Axon conference in Miami and Skydio, the drone company that's part of Axon as well. But first, I'd like to take a moment and thank our sponsor, Officer Store, equipping protectors with passion. That's how we operate, and it's how we live. We understand that having the right gear can mean the difference between life and death. Our goal is to get you the gear you need, when you need it, at prices you can afford. Visit us at officerstore.com. And we're back, and I'm speaking with Chief Brent Plisch from the University of Wisconsin-Madison Police Department and Major Stephen Luce, Director of Professional Standards and Education at Indiana University Police Department, and Officer Gambrell from Indiana University. Welcome back, everyone. Before I talk about VR and tech, I wanted to follow up with Major Luce. So you guys have your own academy. In my 16-week semester, I will do quarterly check-ins with students to say, how's the speed going? 1 to 5. Are we going too fast, too slow? Are we doing okay? And what's the muddiest issue so far? And maybe we can sort of beat remedial training to the punch. Like, as an instructor, I know sometimes we think we're covering a subject and maybe we're just doing a flyby sometimes. And students may not be so forthcoming to say, hey, wait, what does that mean? Can we go back and go over that? So do you have anything like that?
Yeah, all the time. Abby will probably laugh at me, but I over communicate with them, right? And I'm always, the beauty in our academy is we run smaller cohorts, so it's usually 25 to 40 recruits in a class. But a couple things we do as a staff is we try to have formal one-on-ones. As Abby we did that a few times, and then we get busy, but we're always interacting with the recruits, right? So a couple things we do to kind of spot check in the moment is we do those formal and informal check-ins. Something I have them do about every week or every other week is I give them a topic of reflection. That comes to me, and it's really, I want them to put their thoughts on paper. And I tell them, I challenge them, please be open, because I use that feedback week 4 to really tweak week 5 or 6. And, what's the pace? Are you guys getting the material? Are you understanding it? So those are very helpful. Obviously, having those open lines of communications with the staff that if you've got a concern, please let us know. But I only know what I know, right? And I understand sometimes it's hard to go to a gold badge and say, sir, I got a problem. So we bring in some of our other officers, really our younger officers, through mentorship to get to know the recruits and just be another voice for them. But the biggest thing that I ask them to do is when they're done with their academy experience with us, I give them about a month or so to write kind of a final reflection of your experience. And I tell them, I want you to tell me the goods, the bad, the uglies, and take a moment to write, 5, 6 pages of what you experienced, because I will take that, our staff will take that information and tweak the game plan for next year. So what we don't want to do is get in that habit of it's just rinse and repeat. We want to change it based off the student needs. The student is the most important part of that academy. And I don't want to just, for convenience sake for our staff, just pull the plan off the shelf. So we want to evolve the program based off the input from the previous class so that we can make the class that's coming up, let's say in 2025, no offense, Abby, better than the experience they had in 2024. So that's something we consciously want to, keep in our eyes and have a good pulse on. Are we meeting our mark for the student? Are we setting them up for success for their future department, or even if they stay with us at IUPD?
Yeah, so going back to training again, and we try to do what we can with the budgets that we have. Are you both using virtual reality, Chief Plisch? I know you just talked about virtual reality. I think it's a great tool even for empathy building at recruiting, right? So maybe we would build in a couple of scenarios of what would you do, and instead of having two cops standing at that recruiting table, in the fig leaf position and watching people walk by all day long, hey, put on the headset, go through a scenario, see what it's like to be a cop. Abby, how's that sound?
I think it definitely sounds different and new, so I'm not sure what that would look like, but that's definitely something I would be interested in seeing how that would affect policing and law enforcement.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. We've never tried it just because it's kind of a bulky system to move around and transport. But yeah, the VR training is phenomenal. It's not the best tactical tool for training, but what it does is provides a lot of good communication training, a lot of good de-escalation type opportunities, along with tactics. I mean, we combine them both, but certainly VR, I think, will be a game changer. It allows us to do training a lot more easily without having to get role players in and without having a large setup of a room. We have it set up in our training room and it's just set there and anybody can go in and use it, with two officers, one on the computer and one in the headset. And you can do that at 2 o'clock in the morning if you want to.
I can imagine who's doing it at 2 o'clock in the morning. The idea of that sound you heard were all the PT and academy trainers throwing their headsets against the wall saying you cannot replace one-on-one physical training with VR. And Major, what's your experience there? Are you using it at all? I see the value in repetition and giving recruits an idea of a scenario to think about after the scenario. And I keep using the idea of trying to talk with somebody, a suicidal person on a bridge or in a building, and it's kind of like boxing, right? Boxing, you think, oh, 3-minute rounds. Shoot, I could do that staying on my head. But if you've ever done it, 3 minutes is a long time, and especially in a stressful situation. So if we're thinking about a scenario of a suicidal person, what do you say besides people love you, you have a family, people will miss you, don't do this, and then what, right? So I think in a sense, virtual reality works to give you that scenario right now, but it also lets you keep thinking about what if and what would I say for 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, we currently don't have VR tech within our training group. I've used them. I've done some demos. They're pretty cool. I think that there's a lot of value. I mean, I think the tech's going to drive the future. The recruits, they're really into that. I get that. I'd be really interested to see at a baseline how VR could be more incorporated into academy training programs. Because I think the cool thing, as you mentioned there, is we can replicate those things that are hard to replicate, but we can also see that, the stress reaction of the recruit and training. And I think as a training staff, that's going to tell us if there's things that we need to work on in a safe space before we deploy them in the field post academy and they're actually doing the job. So I think there's a lot of research and cool studies that can be done. I would volunteer the IU Police Department in our academy to kind of pilot that and see how that works. But I know the recruits would like that. Because the scenario-based training that we do, it's great, but as Abby knows, it's a process and people are standing by and there's downtime. I think it comes down to repetition, as you said, repetition, exposing people to things in a safe manner, just so that they have familiarity with that. So that if they deal with it in the future, they can say, hey, I've been here before, So I think there's a lot of there's a lot of room for VR and other tech to be built into some of these basic training programs. I know they're costly, but I also think in time it's going to become the norm. I think something we did, it's not VR, but we trying to integrate our body cam system into the recruit training so that they are familiar with that when they come out of the academy. That's something that we talked with this last group, but we're going to try to work that in. So any way we can work this tech into the early start of their basic training, I think it's going to help them long term, especially when it comes into jumping into field training and deploying as a solo officer. So, but the VR, that's the future. I can tell you the time I did it, I was standing on the side of a building with a suicidal person. I had this thing on. I probably looked silly, but I got done and I was sweating. I mean, I could feel it. I was breathing hard. I had that same reaction that I would have had in real life. And it's hard to replicate that in a training environment.
Yeah, for sure. And like Chief Plisch said, the savings of not having to hire, actors or to do, three people training one person, and that kind of repetition takes time and money. But in reality, and I know, we talk about things like a FATS machine, right? The firearms training simulators where there's a big setup and pneumatics and simulated weapons. But a lot of these VR trainings can just be like an Oculus type headset and a scenario based training program inside it. So maybe the two hand controllers in the headset. And I don't know anybody who would say, hey, take these home and do it, but at least in a remediation phase. And I would say that, when I was going through my first academy, even though I knew handcuffing techniques or I knew some other sort of defensive tactic, anytime it was offered beyond the 9 to 5 academy, I signed up for it because the repetition was so valuable. So, Officer Gambrell, wrapping up, I'm so appreciative of all three of you. But Officer Gambrell, what are we missing as far as recruiting? What do we need to do to attract more people, maybe even high school and up?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is just awareness. When I was in high school, there were never really police departments that came to either recruit at our school. We had one student resource officer, but there was never really that big exposure to law enforcement. And then I think that was a big switch when I came to IU, especially in the criminal justice classes, and they really pushed, the cadet officer program. And as a freshman, I didn't even fully know that IU had their own police department. So I think that just getting the information out there is super important. And even specifically for IU, right now we talked about how lots of criminal justice students know about the program, but it's important to try to get that out there to, the other organizations, Kelly School of Business, different, those people who may have different majors that would still end up in a career like this. If they don't have that exposure opportunity, they're never going to find out about programs like this and then go through something like this. And not even at the collegiate level, but I think it's the same thing in high school, is just trying to get people exposed to the opportunities that are out there, and to the different departments around them.
Yeah, I think we're missing out. When we do field studies or field assignments for students, why don't we build something in with the local police, campus police, and do some projects together, do some outreach. Final round, Chief Plisch, what are you doing for retention? How are you attracting people to Wisconsin?
Yeah, I think we've looked at recruitment bonuses, we've looked at retention bonuses. Really, I think for us, the key has been to offer high quality training. Our officers want high quality training that sets them up for success on the road. They want to be engaged in their work. They want to help make decisions within the department that impact how they patrol and how they connect with community members. They want opportunities on the street, things that they are passionate about, and want to delve into with the community. And then finally, we've done market assessments. Our campus communities oftentimes want to compare us to other campuses like ours. So, Wisconsin might look at like Indiana or Ohio or Penn State or Arizona, North Carolina, except we're not losing officers to those institutions. we are losing officers to our local market. So we need to compare ourselves to Madison Police Department, to Dane County Sheriff's Office, and the other jurisdictions around us. So we've done that, and we've had great success with our administration in getting support for market competitive wage increases to match the market where we lose officers.
And Major Luce, similar situation. I know campus police do everything regular police, and then you have that extra burden of care because of the Lehigh University Gene Cleary Act that says you've got to immediately act, you've got to put out notifications, you've got to make accessible all your annual crime reports, where we know that FBI, UCR, we have got so many agencies who just don't report from year to year. You guys are mandated to do it.
Yeah, there's a lot that's required by us, as we all know on the line. University policing, we just got off a command staff huddle this morning. We were talking about Cleary implications, but there's a lot that university policing has to do beyond municipality, state, local, et cetera. But I think from a retention standpoint, it's letting our officers know this is what we do, right? It's part of our culture. It's part of our makeup here as higher ed law enforcement. I think there's a special person. It takes a special person to work in university policing, and I think it goes back to customer service. Always, we're serving our constituents on campus. Some things we've hired a lot here recently, just like the chief had mentioned. I mean, we've gone through the market analysis. Our staff had received a pretty significant pay raise, and those things help. Don't get me wrong, but we're always going to be in that cycle of competing with our local partners in the area. So what we're trying to do is go beyond that. Yes, salary and benefits are important, but also is creating that family environment that Abby talked about, where people want to work here. They see value in it. They see long-term. One of the things that university policing offers in a lot of departments, Chief, I'm sure Wisconsin might have something like this, but I got a son that's a freshman in college, and I get a tuition benefit for his enrollment. So, I mean, that's stuff that trying to tell a young person at 22, hey, your kids can go here half price. They don't think about that, but it's kind of re-educating our younger officers that they understand what that true bucket of benefit is. It's not just pay, it's not just insurance, it's having a healthy, successful career where you can thrive. So we're constantly looking at new ways to improve what that looks like for our staff and our future applicants as well.
Yeah, and I love teaching, mainly because I love the energy at the university, that you've got people that want to be there. It's not like the general public where, you've got all these other issues, but at a university, and you have this turnover of energy, like every 4 or 5 years, you've got a different group going through. So I love the energy at college universities. I love visiting them when I travel. Final words, Officer Gambrell. Abby, you're a great example of a young person looking at the profession, being curious about it, getting in and going, immersion, and looking at a career. And Major Luce, I think you've got some leadership qualities here to look forward to at the agency. Abby, any final words?
I just want to say thanks for having me. This has been a really interesting experience, especially coming from a place where I didn't think that law enforcement was going to be for me, but I've been lucky to get some pretty cool opportunities out of this. So thanks to you for having me, and thanks Major Luce for this too.
Thank you. Chief Plisch?
No, I look forward to, continuing to work with our staff to come up with new ways to recruit and build the future for law enforcement in the special niche that we hold here with campus environments.
Nice. Major Luce?
No, happy to be on here today. Chief, nice to meet you. Abby, I'll definitely see you around. Jim, no, I think it's great. I think if there's anything our department can do, the University Police Department, we're happy to help partner with other agencies, not just in Indiana, but amongst the Big Ten or nationally. But I think that we've got a great opportunity as an industry really to change the narrative of what the future of law enforcement looks like. And your earlier question, what can we do? Here's what we can do. Our officers that are out on the street, and even our administrators, go up to a young person, introduce yourself, talk about the career, and plant that seed. I think that's going to help us. I think we need to get back to our roots of just interacting with our communities and letting people know that, hey, this is a really great profession. There are certain qualities that we're looking for individuals, and we know best. And I think we need to go seek those that would be great applicants going forward. So that's something that we control that destiny. Abby, you're going to be 10, 15 years before you know it. So it's looking for start now. Let's bring the next generation of law enforcement officers in the right way.
Yeah, that's the big challenge these days. And I don't know if you saw the IACP report that just came out last week, but there's a lot that you guys are doing already. So I think we have turned the corner and we've got a pretty good future in bringing young people into the profession. Thanks for what you do, all three of you. Officer Abby Gambrell from the University of Indiana, or Indiana University, excuse me, Major Luce, and Chief Plisch from Wisconsin. And the three bios are below in our show notes. So take a look to learn more. And I'm sure they're willing to help you out in your recruiting efforts and what you're doing at your university, your campus, and in your efforts there. Thanks for what you do. Appreciate it. Good talking to you all today.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
All right, to our listeners, hey, thanks for listening in, and let me know what you think, and drop me a line at policingmatters@police1.com. Let me know what you think, and happy to get back to you. And if you're looking for connections to any of our three guests today, I'm happy to make that connection as well. All right, thanks for listening. Stay safe, and I hope to talk to you again real soon.